B Marsh Boxing back at it was Goody Boxing heads and fight fans around the world. B Marsh back at it with another boxing video. So I was listening to this interview, or I guess a weekly kind of podcast, Total Sports thing on Sky Sports, right? With Spencer Farron, he's always there. Today they had Cobra, Carl Froch up in the studio, you know? And they talked about stuff going on in boxing, whether it's AJ Povetkin gave his thoughts on Joseph Parker versus Dillian White happening not this weekend coming up, but the weekend after, the last Saturday of July. And then they got into the talk of Joe Calzaghe. But I thought that the man Carl Froch, he was being kind of hypocritical, and he was waiting for everybody else in the studio, whether it was Spencer Farron or the young lady who was doing the interview, to kind of give him props so he could pop up his own collar. You know what I mean? Like, now look, as far as resumes, I do rate Carl Froch's resume. You know what I mean? Carl Froch fought a who's who at the time at the super middleweight division. You know what I'm saying? Um, he ain't never get off 4 belts though, like the man Joe Calzaghe. You know what I mean? Now whether Joe, excuse me, whether Joe Calzaghe had some questionable decisions, maybe like that fight he had versus what's that guy who became a champ? Sven. Oh, he lost. He got a bad decision versus Sven Oki. What's his name? Fuck. Robin Reed, right? Robin Reed. You know what I'm saying? That's a guy that Carl Froch beat too. You know what I mean? But nevertheless, Joe Calzaghe, he fought Robin Reed, and Carl Froch fought Robin Reed years after. You know what I mean? Way after. You know what I'm saying? So Carl Froch was just being hypocritical. You know what I mean? He was talking about how Joe Calzaghe, he went to England. I'm sorry, came to the U.S. He had some, he fought the two older legends in Bernard Hopkins, excuse me, and Roy Jones. You know what I mean? But at least the guy did challenge himself. You know what I mean? Say what you want about Biop in 2008. Biop was still was a when he fought Calzaghe. Well, even though he lost his lineal title, or was it the Ring Magazine title to Calzaghe, B Hop was still a champion by the time of like 2014. You know what I'm saying? You check it. So we're talking about 6 years after Calzaghe beat him in a close fight. Some thought B Hop won. I think it was a split decision. I had Calzaghe slightly edging it, but I ain't mad if you thought B Hop won. Excuse me. But nevertheless, you know what I'm saying? He did beat the guy, you know what I mean? And he beat B Hop. He went up to 175. That's something that the man Carl Froch never did. Not to mention how the man, like I said, Calzaghe never had um, all 4 belts simultaneously at the super middleweight division, but he did have all 4 of them at one point in time. You know what I'm saying? I remember when he beat what you call it. He had the WBO for many years, right? He was contending against some you know guys who some of them were not really household names. You know what I mean? I think he beat Chris Eubank for the vacant title. That was in '97, and he fought about a bunch of guys. Omar Shika. He beat Richie Woodhall. You know what I'm saying? Former world champion Charles Brewer. You know what I mean? And I remember he beat former world champion Byron Mitchell. Sweet Pea Fat 12, he's in the chat. What's happening, man? He says, "What up, B Marsh? I had B Hop beating Calzaghe 115 to 112, 7 rounds to 5." Yeah, man. I think I had it 114 to 113. 7 rounds to 5 for Calzaghe, with the difference being the knockdown. You know what I'm saying? I believe he got dropped in round one. Sweet Pea Fast says, "I don't rate Omar Sheikh at all. Neither do I. Got an Italian stallion from Rhode Island. But Calzaghe when he had WBO, he unified with Jeff Lacey, gave him a thorough beating, and I think he became the Ring Magazine or lineal champion when he beat Jeff Lacey. Had a tough fight with Sakio Bika. Um, then he unified. I think he dropped the IBF belt after he beat Jeff Lacey. Then he unified. Excuse me, with Mikhail Kessler. And he got two straps out of that. Kessler was a unified champ his damn self. So at that given time, the man, Calzaghe, had three belts. You check it. And he had just vacated the IBF. So, as far as accomplishments, he did achieve a lot. So did Carl Froch. But Carl Froch was trying to bring up the fact that Mikhail Kessler wasn't 100% when he fought um, Joe Calzaghe. You know what I'm saying? I think he's just saying that to try to take credit away from Calzaghe, knowing damn well that Kessler beat Carl Froch the first time they fought. You know what I mean? So he's trying to make it look like, oh, I fought a healthy, tough guy. That's why I lost. But Calzaghe beat a Kessler who was, who had some injuries. You know what I mean? So I think he was being hypocritical. He's trying to take credit away from him. But the worst thing that got me, like I said, at least Calzaghe came to the United States and he challenged himself. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was against two older guys in B Hop and Roy Jones, both of these guys were short shot first ballot Hall of Famers. The man came to the U.S. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying Carl Froch never came to the U.S. He fought here a couple times in that Super Six tournament when he fought Glenn Johnson and Andre Ward. And then he was trying to justify how in the Andre Ward fight, which I had it a fucking wash. You know what I'm saying? Andre Ward took him to boxing school. But Carl Froch was trying to justify how one judge had it 115, 113. 7 rounds to 5 in favor of Andre Ward. What does that mean? Regardless, that judge had it in favor of Andre Ward, and that didn't really reflect, that scorecard didn't reflect how the fight went. There's a difference, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, what I'm saying? Whether he fought Andre Ward and Glenn Johnson here in the States, you know what I mean? It's, truth of the matter is he lost to Andre Ward, you know what I'm saying? And he had a very close fight, a majority decision versus Glenn Johnson. And Glenn Johnson, he himself he was old himself. You know what I mean? But what really irked me, and I thought that the man Carl Froch lost to Andre Durrell, you know what I'm saying? It was a split decision, but I had him losing that fight. You know what I mean? But the point I'm trying to make also, what got me upset is how the man Carl Froch was trying to say, oh, Carl Froch vacated his title. I'm sorry, Joe Calzaghe vacated his title and went on to 175. He ain't want to fight me. You know what I'm saying? Like he vacated his title. Well, Carl Froch, you did the same damn thing to James DeGale. James DeGale was on your ass. He was the mandatory. You know what I mean? He was trying to get that fight for a long time. You know what I'm saying? After Carl Froch had defeated George Groves, you know what I mean? George Groves is not a sure shot first ballot Hall of Famer, and I'm not saying that that Carl Froch hasn't beaten no Hall of Fame caliber fighters. You know what I'm saying? You know, Glenn Johnson is a borderline. We'll see if he'll make it to the Hall of Fame. Really and truly, though, when I really come to think about it, I don't think he has beaten any short shot first ballot Hall of Famers. George Groves isn't, neither is Mikhail Kessler, Lucian Bute, who Carl Froch considers that's his best win of his career. Well, that guy, Lucian Bute, is not a Hall of Famer. Andre Ward is going to be, but you ain't beat him. Glenn Johnson is probably the closest thing to a Hall of Famer or a guy who might, and he's not solidified short shot first Hall of Famer. Glenn Johnson, you know what I mean? Glenn Johnson could make a case, but, he's basically a French contender when it comes to trying to make the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Andre Durrell's not. Jermaine Taylor, these guys ain't Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? Pascal, nah. So Joe Calzaghe's already in the Hall of Fame, and I believe Carl Froch will go into the Hall of Fame just because of the difficult fights he took back to back and the nice reign at super middleweight. You know what I mean? But being critical on how the man trying to say that the man Calzaghe avoided you by vacating his straps. Well, Carl Froch was a guy who openly avoided and docked Adonis Stevenson. You know what I mean? That's a fight he never took. Adonis was his mandatory. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not mad at him. Okay, he went on to fight Mikhail Kessler. You know what I mean? And that was a unification. Okay, you know what I mean? He had his IBF belt. He beat off with Lucian Bute. Kessler had his WBA super middleweight title, and there was a unification, sure, but and it was for more money. You know what I mean? It was a rematch of a fight that happened, and I'm not mad at him. At that stage of his career, he was looking for the big money fights, but he did duck the man Adonis Stevenson. You know what I mean? And not to mention, before he retired, he vacated his strap and just blew off into the wind and didn't fight the man. What's his name? Um, James DeGale. Let's see what they're saying in the chat. Sweet Pea fan. He says Roy Jones was shot by 2008. No way was anyone rate that win highly, and I agree. Froch maximum won 2 rounds against Ward. Funny behavior at the end by Froch. Yeah. B Marsh East Sweet Pea fan was asking, what was your score, Darrell versus Froch? Well, I think I did a video on that. I think I did even a controversial decisions, and I had Andre Darrell winning. That's for sure. I think you know what? Actually, I had it 116, 112. At worst, I could see 115, 113, 7 rounds to 5, but I had it 8 rounds to 4. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see Carl Froch winning that fight by no means. But I do agree, yes, no question. Roy Jones was shot at that particular time, but the same for Roy Jones who was shot, he did put Calzaghe on the canvas. And, Carl Froch, like I said, he fought B Hop in a close contested fight, you know what I'm saying? But at least, I'm sorry, now, Calzaghe, at least, like I said, Calzaghe did come to the United States to get them big paydays, you know what I mean? You check it, and he moved up in weight, something that this guy, Joe Calzaghe, did it. I'm sorry, Carl Froch didn't do. Now, I do rate Calzaghe as probably him and Andre Ward, 1 and 2, are the greatest super middleweights of all time. I could probably put Carl Froch up in there, definitely maybe in the top 5. You know what I'm saying? But head to head, if they did fight, prime for prime, I think it'd be an awesome fight. You know what I'm saying? Calzaghe's volume punching, you know what I'm saying? High work rate versus Carl Froch's rude, crude style, where, you know what I'm saying? He's not a guy who's he's an awkward fighter. Carl Froch is, not really a conventional fighter. He's a kind of guy who throws lead right hands before even throwing a jab. You know what I'm saying? But he's a power puncher at best. Calzaghe's a volume puncher, so it'd make for a great fight. Who would I favor to win? You're gonna have to find out maybe when I do a video on fights we didn't get to see. Carl Froch versus Joe Calzaghe. I'm gonna leave it at that. You know what I'm saying? But big ups to Sweet Pea fan 12 in the chat. Big ups to everybody who gonna listen to this on archives, and let me know what y'all think about Carl Froch on the Sky Sports Toe to Toe podcast with Spencer Fearon. You think this guy was being a little, and he was trying to poke holes at Joe Calzaghe's resume. Um, could do that to any and everybody's resume. You know what I mean? I don't think he needed to go to that extent, but it is what it is. Let me see what Sweepy fan. He's in the chat. He says, "You say you don't rate Kessler as a Hall of Famer. That's Calzaghe's greatest win. Another controversial win over 43-year-old BL, who won clearly, gas, gassing by end of the round 8." Um, Calzaghe, I'd probably give B Hop as Joe Calzaghe's greatest win, not Mikhail Kessler. Mikhail Kessler was a good fighter, but he was fighting a lot of guys over there in Europe and stuff. You know what I mean? And super middleweight division is a division primarily over the years been contested by Europeans. You know what I mean? It's like one of those European like cruiserweight. You know what I mean? But um, no, I don't rate Calzaghe. What's his name? Kessler as a Hall of Famer. No, I don't. But regardless, if even if you think, Sweet Pea fan, that that's his best win, well, so be it. At the end of the day, Joe Calzaghe, 46-0, retired and is in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? And he had a good career. You know what I mean? Whether he fought a lot of guys early in his career before his unification that were, there were, guys who were really not that great, and he never got to fight with the man Sven Oki. Sven Oki ducked him, and some will say that Calzaghe ducked him because he didn't want to go to Germany. Sven Oki ain't want to come to England, so it is what it is. But I think B Hop is definitely for sure his best win. You know what I mean? Be Marsh Boxing about to seal the deal on this live stream. I'm coming up with some more vids in a bit, and I'm gonna catch y'all on the next vid. Big ups to Sweet Pea fan in the chat, and I'm out of here. One.